Good evening everybody, it's me, Luke, the Ultimate Reacts, and it is time for a video that's been requested by one of my YouTube subscribers. He has asked me to react to a video from a channel called Mustard. It's called Why You Wouldn't Want to Fly on the Soviet Concorde, the Tupolev-144 story. So, yeah. As you guys know, I love anything to do with aviation. I do Microsoft Flight Simulator streams on Twitch, and sometimes I did a test stream, I think last week, where I tried to basically just broadcast Twitch through this and put that on YouTube live, but it didn't work so well. The sound wasn't so good, but I think that's because I didn't have my headphones turned on. You know, when you use OBS, the sound isn't great if you're using the PC sound instead of headphones. So I'm going to try it again with that. But yeah, I love aviation, anything to do with aviation. I play Microsoft Flight Simulator literally every day. I do at least an hour or two flying every day, sometimes even longer. I just love airplanes, anything to do with airplanes. You know, they're incredible things. And the Concorde is my favourite aircraft in history, apart from the Spitfire, of course. But I think Concorde, it's unbelievable, you know. The fact that it was created in the 60s, and when you look at it today in 2023, it still looks like something that was made a few years ago, a mere 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, or something that's going to be released in the future. You know, it's unbelievable. I mean, look at that. It's incredible how it just always looks modern. It's a beautiful aircraft, and it shouldn't have, you know, what happened to it shouldn't have happened. It should be still flying. You know, it really winds me up, because you look at companies like Boeing, you know, their aircrafts, their planes have killed thousands of people, and they haven't even come close to having an aircraft retired. They've been grounded, but they haven't been retired. You know, our Concorde has 2 crashes, 1 major crash that kills a couple hundred people, never flies again. So, yeah, it annoys me. But this is not about Concorde, this is about the Soviet Concorde, apparently. I have seen this aircraft before, but I haven't heard much about it. So let's get into this, yeah.
The Concorde could rip across the Atlantic in just over 3 hours.
I'll put the subtitles on just in case people need them.
Twice as fast as any modern-day airliner. The Atlantic in just over... The Concorde could rip across the Atlantic in just over 3 hours. Twice as fast as any modern-day airliner. And you'd do it in style, while sipping champagne. Wait a minute. This isn't Concorde.
Looks like it though, doesn't it? Any guesses what it was like? I'm going to guess it was very Soviet Union-y, if you know what I mean. A bit like a similar experience to the difference between driving a Rolls Royce and a Lada from the 60s. If you get my drift, catch my drift.
This is the only other supersonic jet to ever carry commercial passengers. No, this isn't Concorde. This is the Soviet Union's Tupolev-144. And yes, it looked like the Concorde, but flying on this thing was nothing like the Concorde. The Tu-144 was kind of like the Concorde's crazy older sister. She was loud, uncomfortable, and a little dangerous. But the 144 story is definitely worth telling. It clearly knocked off a lot of the Concorde's design.
Yeah.
Just look at it. But it actually did some things better.
That's the first thing that's standing out to me. Just the similarities between the 144 and Concorde is incredible. You know, I mean, even the engines are very similarly placed. Concorde's engines were a bit wider apart, whereas the one on the Tupolev 144, they're basically against the fuselage. Also, the wings on the Concorde are a bit more curved, and this is a bit more of a sharper angles, but very similar. Was that by accident, or did they literally just see the Concorde and copy it?
They knocked off a lot of the Concorde's design. Just look at it. But it actually did some things better, like carry more passengers. It even flew faster. But ultimately, the 144 story is about faking it, about deceiving the world. In the 1960s, the race to build a supersonic passenger jet, well, it was more than about just flying fast. It was about asserting superiority for both the Soviets and the West.
Yeah, it was a very political endeavour, Concorde. I remember it was between us and the Americans. The Americans were trying to do it as well. They were trying with I think Boeing got the contract in the end, but they failed miserably. You know, it just kept going wrong. They were over designing it and over innovating with it, whereas, you know, what we in France created, it was just beautifully simple. It was just an airplane done. It was designed properly. It was done right, you know. Whereas America, they put these stupid wings on it that would, you know, during normal flight they'd be brought in and shaped a bit like the Delta wing on a Concorde, but then they were able to swing out during lower flight for more stability. You know, just little things like that, like you get on modern some fighter jets. You know, no need for it basically, and it never got off the ground, I don't think.
Both the Soviets and the West. And the race to be the first actually started as a three-way between the Americans with their half-baked Boeing 27.
Yeah, Boeing 2707, that's it, yeah.
707, the joint British-French Concorde, and the Soviets with their Tu-144. The Americans ruined their shot by tying themselves up in bureaucracy and cost overruns. This put the Concorde project firmly in the lead. The Soviets, who had more primitive technology, had a lot of catching up to do, so they relied on good old Soviet ingenuity. Oh, and they stole a whole bunch from the Concorde program. Early on, Soviet spies made out with over 90,000 technical documents on the Concorde and other aircraft.
Soviet spies. Yeah, that explains a lot. Yeah. I can believe that, totally. It is literally like, you know how Titanic had, like, 2 sister ships? Well, that 144, it's like Concorde's sister plane. It's amazing how similar it looks. But there is just a couple of differences, so maybe like half sister. Or first cousins don't really look alike, do they? Half sister then.
90,000 technical documents on the Concorde and other aircraft, so they caught up to the Concorde program, and the 144 took flight 2 months before Concorde. It's obvious the Concorde was designed around passenger experience.
Most sensational aspect is that there is no sensation at all. Aviation Week, talking about the Concorde. Yeah, I mean that was the thing that you kept hearing about it. It's not like being on a normal aircraft at all. It's quiet and comfortable.
Journalists marveled at how quiet and smooth supersonic flight was, and how flight attendants had no trouble chatting.
Possible and pleasant to walk around during all flight regimes. Well, yeah, you should be able to walk around on a flight.
Of passengers while they served martinis. And the 144, well, caviar and champagne were also brought out.
The dominant impression was not speed but noise. New York Times, talking about the 144. Yeah, it doesn't look too great in there either.
Passengers while they served martinis. And the 144, well, caviar and champagne were also brought out. Western journalists fixated on the cramped seats, window shades that would suddenly drop without being pulled, and that some of the bathrooms weren't even working.
Oh.
The 144's more primitive engines and cooling system worked together to produce a sound so loud that passengers couldn't talk to one another. Instead, they had to pass around handwritten notes.
What?
Playing past the note without... Other passengers must have killed some of the opulence.
Yeah, that definitely must have killed some of the opulence. Imagine flying on any plane and it being so loud you can't talk to anybody else. You have to pass around notes. And I'm guessing you had to do the same thing to the flight crew. So, you know, excuse me, I would like a martini. There you go. That yeah, that'd be awful.
Passengers must have killed some of the opulence.
Yeah.
Not that flying on the 144 was ever going to be a normal experience. The plane only ever saw passenger service on a single lonely route between Moscow and Almaty, Kazakhstan. The thing is, the 144's engine burned so much fuel.
Interesting connection to this channel. I do a lot of DMAS reactions, and he's from Kazakhstan. I don't know if he's from Almaty, but yeah, still Kazakhstan.
144's engine burned so much fuel, it couldn't actually fly much further. It couldn't even cross the Soviet Union. Compare that to the Concorde. Its route spanned continents and oceans. And the Tu-144 flew only once a week, even though there were 7...
Just look at the difference. Look at that. So...
Only once a week.
Oh, wait, no.
Oceans. And the Tu...
So that's Concorde and where it could fly. So as we know, its most famous capability was to be able to go from London to New York in like 3 hours. And the 144 could only go that far. And I think he just said then once a week, and it could only do this once a week. Wow. So that shows you the difference between Concorde and the one. Wow. That's a vast difference, isn't it?
Tu-144
efficiency and ability.
Flew only once a week, even though there were 7 more certified and ready for service.
7.
This shows how
right.
confident Soviet leaders were in the 144. Out of 102 scheduled flights, there were 226 mechanical failures.
Oh yeah, yeah. There were more mechanical failures than flights. So what's that? I'm no good at maths, guys. 102. So that's 2.2 mechanical failures per flight, on average.
80 of which
80
were serious
of which
enough
were
to delay
critical.
or cancel the flight altogether.
Delay or cancel it.
The possibility of a
Wow.
144 crashing with passengers aboard was a huge political risk.
Yeah.
And from the very beginning, the 144's airworthiness was in serious question. It crashed in front of thousands of spectators during the 1973 Paris Air Show.
Wow.
Then again in 1978 when a cargo version went down after a fuel line rupture.
A cargo
And yet again
version?
in 1980 when one suffered an engine explosion, forcing an emergency landing. The problem was,
Wow.
the Tu-144 had clearly been rushed in its development.
Plagued by technical problems from the start.
Getting this thing built before
Being rushed in its development. Yeah, it is often the case though, isn't it? You know, big companies that make... It happens a lot with cars. A lot of cars are rushed in their development, especially if it's a car that's in a competition with another company. You get it sometimes with like sports cars and supercars. I can't remember who it was. Was it Lamborghini? They released a car too soon, and I can't remember what it was though. It might not have even been Lamborghini, but I think there was a supercar of some sort, and it was released too fast, and it had set on fire. The engine had overheated, and so was it Ferrari? It was something to do with the glue in, I think it was the wheel arches. It had overheat and set the car on fire. I think it was... I mean, I know the Ferrari 458, that's the car. I know that happened for a fact, but I don't know if it was because it was rushed. I don't know if it was that car that was rushed. But, yeah. You rush your develop, yeah, it caused a lot of problems.
Getting this thing built before the Concorde was more important for the Soviets than actually building it well. The
Exactly.
144's engineers had fewer resources and inferior technologies. But still, you gotta hand it to them for actually getting it done.
Yeah.
The Concorde's
You
design
have.
team had state-of-the-art Rolls-Royce Olympus engines with computer-controlled engine inlets that allowed
Those engines on the Concorde, they are, oh, wow, incredible. unbelievable engines. Just when you think about the engines, different aircraft and the different engines that they have, I can't think of many others that I would put above the ones on the Concorde. I mean, it really puts it into perspective, the capability of the Concorde, because Phil Collins, you remember Live Aid in 1985, where Queen performed that incredible 20-minute show. Phil Collins performed at Live Aid in London in the morning, and then he was able to get on Concorde, fly to America, and perform at Live Aid in America the same day. How amazing is that? Try that today. How long does it take to get to America now? 6 hours at least. But because we had Concorde back then, he was able to perform the same show on 2 different continents. We've actually gone backwards in commercial air travel since we lost Concorde. We haven't gone forwards. I mean, yeah, airplanes are a lot safer now. Airbus have mastered the art of efficiency and safety. All the Airbus aircraft released in the last 20 years, not one of them's crashed or killed a single person. But it still takes us the same amount of time to get to the same destinations today as it did 40 years ago. We haven't moved forward at all. It's ridiculous. We think, we're so advanced as humans, look at the technology. But it still takes us 7 hours to get to America. Nearly a full day to get to Australia.
The Concorde's design team had state-of-the-art Rolls-Royce Olympus engines with computer-controlled engine inlets that allowed for something called Super Cruise.
Super Cruise,
So once
yes.
Concorde reached supersonic,
it could turn the afterburners off.
her fuel-thirsty afterburners could be switched off while still maintaining supersonic.
That's incredible.
Tu-144 engineers had to make do with engines that needed continuous afterburners to maintain supersonic.
Wow.
The Concorde had a sophisticated wing optimized for both supersonic and low-speed flight.
How much fuel would that use? I mean, the Concorde, it used the same amount of fuel just by taxiing from the apron, the terminal, to the runway it was taking off from, than a normal car uses in 6 months of driving, just to taxi to the runway to take off. So how much fuel was that thing using, flying with its afterburners on the entire time? Wow.
Flying. The Tu-144's wing was really only good for supersonic, so pilots had to land the 144 at higher speeds, making for brutally hard landings that even required a parachute. The Soviets worked around their wing limitations by designing canards, little deployable wings at the front of the aircraft which would improve low-speed stability.
Yeah.
But all the innovation on both sides of the Iron Curtain couldn't overcome the reality that supersonic travel was just too expensive.
They made the engines, they made the wings able to fold out and fold in.
In the capitalist West, you could price Concorde tickets at 5 or 6 times what a regular flight would cost.
Yeah, Concorde flights, they were for a very specific customer base. You couldn't, the same people that were flying on Concorde in the 90s aren't flying on Jet 2 today. It just wasn't for that kind of people. I mean, look, if you were flying the Concorde tomorrow, you'd wear a Rolex. The BMW M1 being marketed parked in front of a Concorde. That's the exact type of person that used to fly on it. There was a documentary about the Concorde, and Joan Collins was on it as, one of the most regular, frequent flyers on it. It wasn't, it wasn't for the everyday man. I think it was £9,000 to fly to New York on it.
You could price Concorde tickets at 5 or 6 times what a regular flight would cost. So the Concorde became about glitz and glamour.
But
on the other side of the Iron Curtain, things were a little bit more awkward.
No, I think it was dollars. $9,000 to fly to New York on Concorde.
Who exactly in the Communist Soviet Union was supposed to fly aboard the Tu-144?
Yeah.
The price of a ticket was set at just 37 rubles, not much more than you'd expect to pay on a regular flight, not nearly enough to cover operational costs. The 14 Concordes that entered service found a small...
I love that photo. I've seen that photo before. 4 Concordes flying next to each other in the modern British Airways livery. Oh, just look at her. She is the most beautiful thing we've ever produced, this country. I actually get a strange, deep emotional feeling every time I see her flying in the air after she was retired, because you just know that it's not flying in the way that it should be. It's just for show, or an air show, or a flyover for a royal event. It actually upsets me.
Small niche serving celebrities and the rich. But even with that, Concorde itself was still a commercial failure. The French and the British had poured billions into developing it, even as they knew very early on that they'd never...
I've seen that advert. It's fantastic.
Even as they knew very early on that they'd never be able to sell hundreds of Concordes needed to recoup development costs. But the 144, without the same premium niche to fill on the other side of the Iron Curtain, could only ever be used as a propaganda tool and a prestige project. The Concorde would ferry passengers for 27 years, up until it was retired in 2003. The Tu-144, well, it was retired from regular passenger service not even a full year after it started.
A year? Wow. Just fuel coming out of the back. Well, I guess that's the end. That was a really good video. I mean, it was a bit like a mini documentary, you know. I love the visuals and the graphics that he's got going on, you know, like real archive footage coupled with, you know, these kind of bits. See if I can find, like this, the diagram, the sketches of the two planes. And like these kind of parts, yeah, really good video. And I know it seemed like I was just constantly going on about the Concorde and little bits of trivia, but I was taking in everything that he was saying, and it was really comprehensive and really covered a lot of bases, and really interesting story. But basically, at the end of the day, the simple roundup of the Russian Concorde is that it was too fuel thirsty, too loud, too unrefined, and dangerous. And it was never really, it wasn't built to be a functional aircraft. It was literally just to get one over their Western rivals. So I think for that reason you can't really compare it to Concorde, because Concorde was built for, I mean, it was also, there was an element of that in it. There was a deep political motivation in building the Concorde, but it was also built to be a functional aircraft. And it worked brilliantly. I mean, yeah, it was expensive, and it was a commercial failure. I'm not afraid of admitting that. Everyone knows that. But I just can't help but thinking, you know, today, in today's world, things are more advanced, and it is easier to maintain big, expensive, temperamental, sophisticated machines. I think it'd be easier to maintain it and keep it in perfect working order. I think they could bring back the old Concordes, put them back into active service. I think it would work. You know? All they'd have to just put them all through a service, make sure that the airframe and the fuselage, the wings, every part of the aircraft basically is, you know, there's no damage. Fix anything that they find. Maybe replace certain parts. You know, like the I can't think of what it's called. The stuff that keeps it held together. Maybe rebuild the engines, take the old ones off, put new ones on, with a few modern tweaks, like, you know, modern, you know, current day, modern day cooling systems, rather than the ones that came on the original engines. That'd make it even safer. I think it would work. I'd give anything to see it come back. I honestly would. Oh, there's another video there. Why you couldn't afford to fly the Concorde. I might do that one as well. Oh, and the American Concorde. Yeah, I think I'll do those eventually. Well, let me know if you want me to. No, I'll do them. Anything about Concorde, I'll watch. But yeah, that was a request from Ryan. So, very interesting video. And very well put together. Yeah, this is a good channel. So, I guess that's it. So thanks for watching. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you are new. I do have a Patreon page where you can join from $1 a month, and we've got a lot of stuff going on there at the moment. We've got, what have we got? I started Clarkson's Farm yesterday. We've got the British documentary show Ambulance. We've got Father Ted. We've got, what else have we got? Two Doors Down. We've got a lot of stuff going on there. So, yeah, just go check it out. You can get a free 7-day trial of any tier to see if you like what's going on there anyway. But yeah, that's it. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.